Most of us picture ancient history as a monolithic era of people building massive structures under the whip of a king. But early civilizations were distinct, highly complex experiments in how to engineer political power. To understand these power structures, you have to look at their starting material. Every great early society ran on the exact same biological input, a predictable, massive river flood. That regular flooding created a vast agricultural surplus. Suddenly, societies had excess wealth and labor to spend. We can examine three specific places where this happened: the Nile in Egypt, the Indus and Sarasvati rivers in South Asia, and the Yellow and Yangtze rivers in China. They all had the exact same environmental input. The real historical lesson is how radically different they chose to invest that surplus. The divergence of these civilizations comes down to a clear trade-off. Do you spend your surplus building top-down monumental propaganda or bottom-up municipal utility?
Think of it like a decision tree. You start with agricultural surplus at the top. From there, the structural paths diverge into three distinct choices: monumental ideology, civic standardization, and dynastic bureaucracy. We decode these societies by evaluating the physical evidence left at the bottom. Egypt offers the ultimate model for extreme centralization. All political, economic, and religious authority flowed directly up to a single point. The pharaoh functioned as a literal god-king, serving as the ultimate ideological anchor for the entire state. With that level of concentrated ideology, you can mobilize incredible amounts of labor for projects that offer zero practical utility. The Great Pyramids stand as undeniable proof of this massive, top-down resource extraction. To sustain that kind of mobilization over thousands of years requires an intense administrative machine. These hieroglyphics acted as the state's central ledger, recording taxes, grain storage, and strict labor quotas. This points to Egypt's core trade-off. They secured thousands of years of identifiable cultural continuity, but they paid for it by funneling immense resources into giant tombs for the elite, rather than public works for the average citizen. The Egyptian system optimized perfectly for top-down historical continuity and monumental ego. Then we look at the Indus Valley, and the entire Egyptian model breaks down. The Indus civilization took their river surplus and poured it almost entirely into municipal standardization, rather than grand monuments. The primary evidence is Mohenjo-Daro. You can clearly see the rigid, mathematically aligned grid foundations of this deliberate urban environment. Looking closer at the alleyways, we find advanced municipal drainage systems, demonstrating a massive investment in the health of the average resident. Their coordination reached a microscopic level. The bricks used to build these circular platforms and structures across the entire region were all manufactured to strictly standardized weights and ratios. But here is the massive historical mystery. Despite engineering this incredible civic coordination, archaeologists have found zero evidence of grand palaces, central temples, or autocratic god-kings. The Indus Valley proves that a highly functional, egalitarian-leaning state can operate at scale with a completely ambiguous central authority. Moving to the Yellow River, early Chinese dynasties like the Shang and Zhou developed a third method for maintaining order along this harsh, resource-rich geography. They operated on a concept known as the mandate of heaven. Rulers claimed a divine right to govern the state, but crucially, they could lose that mandate if they failed to provide for the people and maintain order. To legitimize this mandate, the state utilized early writing. These primitive characters etched across an oracle bone were used to communicate with ancestors and solidify the dynasty's authority. They invested heavy technological surplus into ritual power. Intricate bronze vessels were cast specifically for elite ancestral worship, embedding the state's authority into daily ritual. The trade-off here is unique. When an autocrat lost the mandate of heaven, violent regime changes followed. But the underlying administrative framework they built was so effective that it survived the collapse. Early China optimized for ideological longevity by constructing a bureaucratic machine capable of outliving any individual ruler. This chart evaluates these operating systems. The horizontal axis measures civic infrastructure focus. The vertical axis measures centralized autocracy. Egypt lands top left, achieving high centralization but low public utility. The Indus Valley sits in the bottom right, achieving intense civic focus while keeping central autocracy ambiguous. China sits top right, a hybrid model, combining central authority with bureaucratic utility. There is simply no perfect societal template. As these ancient engineers show, prioritizing a centralized legacy almost always extracts resources away from average citizen infrastructure, and vice versa. For those thinking about systems design, the Indus anomaly is the most revealing. It proves definitively that you can scale a highly complex, standardized society without relying on a visible autocracy. Our modern perception of power is biased. We remember the societies that left massive physical propaganda behind, while ignoring the ones that simply worked. Ultimately, a civilization reveals its true priorities by whether it chooses to write its power in towering stone monuments or in municipal plumbing.